Hey there, real estate junkies. Before we dive into today's episode, we've got some game changing resources to help you start buying and selling real estate on terms, the smart, creative way. Want to learn how to invest with little or no money down? Grab your free ebook, The 4 Game Plans, and discover the exact strategies we use every day. Get it now. The link is in the show notes. Looking for a complete step by step system to start making 3 paydays per deal? Check out the Quantum Leap System, our home study course packed with everything you need to close your first terms deal. Need a personalized strategy? Book a free one-on-one strategy session with one of our coaches. Just use coupon FREE3 at checkout. Ready to take action? Join the 3 Payday Apprentice Program and start working toward real estate success with direct mentorship. Want hands-on training with us? Spend 3 days at our Trenches Bootcamp, where we'll work side by side to lock in deals. And don't miss our biggest event of the year, QOS Live 2025. Connect with top investors, sharpen your skills, and take your business to the next level. Secure your spot today. All links are right below in the show notes. Click now and start building your real estate empire. Now, let's get into today's episode.
Yeah, and you'll hear investors, cash flow is king, right? And so they would look at us and they'd be like, "You guys are crazy. What are you? You guys are nuts. You guys don't. You're gonna take out a deal that has possibly negative cash flow." And yes, and the reason why Mr. Investor that is hating on us for that is it's a $10 consideration fee to get into these contracts. So our payday one, for example, my first lease purchase was an $86,000 payday one. I put $10 down. And so am I okay with having some sort of maybe a negative cash flow if I get $86,000 up front, right? And a potential 6-figure deal in 3 years, right? So for those of you that are like skittish about paydays, cash flow, you got to look at it holistically, like you said. Welcome back, everybody, to Real Estate Junkies Coast to Coast. I'm your co-host on the West Coast, Rusty M. On the East Coast, Rick, say hi.
Hey everyone, I'm Rick Abbiati from New Hampshire.
New Hampshire. I wore shorts all day today. It's February. Rick, I'm going to be going to, it's called Cathedral City to watch my daughter play, and projected weather is going to be low 80s.
Jeez, it's be nice.
So I'm going to bring out some sunscreen. I'm going to have my tank top on to show off my muscles. I'm kidding. I don't have muscles. Anyway, Rick.
And I'll be donning my winter coat, hat, and gloves and boots.
Yeah, shovel snow, which I think I've done once in my life, and it was horrible. Anyway, let's talk about, I know normally we do mindset, skill set, and systems. And then as a game plan, we talk about one of the 4 game plans, which we're going to talk about in our mindset section. But we're going to switch gears a little bit in the middle part of this and talk about a 3-year projection and what that's going to look like. And then we're going to end in our cool down, which is our In the Trenches Bootcamp this Thursday, virtual. This is for anybody. So if you guys, we'll talk about it at the end. If you guys want to join that In the Trenches Bootcamp, see what we do, you guys can join at any time. So Rick, let's backtrack to the beginning. Mindset, skill set, and systems. Let's talk about the mindset when it comes to our associates. And we just talked about it off the air, how quickly they want to go right to an AO. And again, let me define what an AO is. One of our game plans. It's actually, we call it an executive lease purchase, where we find the buyer, a rental home buyer typically. We assign that rental home buyer back to the seller. We give them a portion of the down payment, and then we're hands off at that point. So we get a payday one and that's it, right? We call it an executive lease purchase because then the seller gets all the benefits that we normally would get in a lease purchase, which is a payday one, rent cash flow, principal pay down, and the premium on the home. So they get those benefits. We don't. We just get paid once and we're out. Talk about the mindset of an associate. Why would they? Because what we do is we lead with lease purchase owner financing. Like hypothetically, Rick, would you be open to a lease purchase owner financing? That's the first question we ask the seller. We don't lead with, So what's the mindset of an associate going right to an AO immediately?
Well, one of the advantages of an AO is that it's a quicker payday. It's a payday 1, and you don't have a payday 2 or payday 3 with that. So that's the drawback of it. But on the flip side of it, it's the agreement, the sign out agreement is just nothing more than an agreement saying it gives us the right to, or the authority to market the property. It's not like a purchase and sales agreement. That is a binding contract. So therefore, what tends to happen is the seller can back out for whatever reason. So they tend to fall apart. And the ones that fall apart, if you look across the sub 2 owner finance, lease purchase, or AO, it's the AOs that will tend to fall apart.
Yeah, because, and there's reasons, and we've talked about the reasons why we would pivot to an AO. Again, we teach the associates not to lead with AO. We teach them to lead with lease purchase owner financing. And then there's reasons why we would pivot to an AO. And those reasons could be they want money up front, or they want a shorter term. They want cash flow. They used to be a landlord and they don't mind being a landlord. Again, you're not going to be a landlord because we're finding buyers, but it is a quick hit, right? You're in, you're out. You don't have to deal with the house anymore. You get your money, you run. We typically don't run. We tell the seller we're behind you. If you need any help, we're going to be right there with you. We don't cut ties, right? And say, see you later, seller. We don't. We want to continue that relationship. But it is only a payday 1, right? So, and again, in our community, we talk about 3 paydays, which is the non-refundable down payment we get from the tenant buyer, the cash flow that we get from them, the difference between what we get from the tenant buyer and what we give to the seller. If there's a mortgage on it, we get the principal pay down through the term. And then we also get it, we sell it to the tenant buyer as a premium. So that's another way we get paid, is the payday 3 is when they close. We don't get those benefits, right, if we go in A.
Right. And I think as far as an AO, one of the other reasons that people may tend to pivot to an AO almost immediately is on a house that is, or property that is in the $1 million range, because there's always the fear of being stuck with the monthly payment should the buyer default. But once you've been around for a while, you realize that the down payment, when a buyer comes in, and let's say it's a $2 million property, they're putting 10% down, they're going to have 200,000 down. Well, that covers you any monthly payments for quite some time if the buyer defaults.
Yeah, there is that fear, right? That was my fear when I first started. I'm in Southern California where the average house price is probably $600K. And I was fearful of talking to $1 million homes. What I come to find out is they're easier to talk to. They're familiar with creative financing, and it's an easier conversation, right? I wasn't afraid anymore because I knew that I was going to get 10% because of, jumbo loan limits. You're going to have that money stashed away. So if something were to happen, it's a $5,000 payment, you have that money stashed away, and then you can pivot, right? You can sell it traditionally. You can find another tenant buyer, get another down payment, right? So there's multiple things you can do if a buyer does fail to, complete their option, because it is a lease purchase with the option to buy. So if they don't complete their option, then they forfeit their down payment, they forfeit the house, and we can evict them. For me, Rick, they pivot to an AO, and I've seen a trend that the payday 2, which is the monthly payment, we're starting to see those monthly payments creep up a little bit because of interest rates, and the associate doesn't see a benefit in the payday 2, right? There might be some negative payday 2 or it's a break even situation. And the associate says, well, if I'm not making any money monthly, I'm just going to do an AO, which is, it's reverse thinking. They're not thinking long-term or big picture, right? Because big picture, we do all 3 paydays and we see what we're going to make. And they're so narrow-minded that they're just looking at the payday 2, which could be a negative. If it is a negative and you get a big payday 1, who cares, right? I mean, talk about that mindset.
Yeah. One of my deals, it's a 6-figure deal, but I'm also coming out of pocket on payday 2 by a little bit. I'm a little bit negative on a payday 2, but a good size payday 1 and a good size payday 3. So you have to look at it holistically.
Yeah. And you'll hear investors, cash flow is king, right? And so they would look at us and they'd be like, you guys are crazy. What are you guys are nuts. You guys don't, you're going to take out a deal that has possibly negative cash flow. And yes, and the reason why Mr. Investor that is hating on us for that is it's a $10 consideration fee to get into these contracts. So our payday one, for example, my first lease purchase was an $86,000 payday one. I put $10 down. And so am I okay with having some sort of maybe a negative cash flow if I get $86,000 up front, right? And a potential 6-figure deal in 3 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for those of you that are like skittish about paydays, cash flow, you got to look at it holistically, like you said. And if it's a big deal, if it's 75 grand or more, then suck it up, right?
Right. It's a different story if all 3 paydays aren't as profitable and you're coming out of pocket and you just can't afford to do that. That's a little bit different story.
Yeah. If you're putting money up front, like in a sub 2, like, we look at sub 2s all the time and, let's say that, they want 5% up front. There's very little payday 2 and, we might have trouble selling it at a certain price point on the back end. We would say, no, we're not going to take that deal. Right. Good stuff. Let's pivot to, again, this is our game plans section where we talk about the 4 game plans, which we kind of touched upon a little bit here, which is lease purchase, owner financing, sub 2, or executive lease purchase A. We're going to not do that. And so go ahead and talk about what we talked about off air, which is the 3-year plan and what that entails for people that maybe want to do this. And you got to have a long-term goal in mind, right? This is not a get rich quick type of.
So if you look at 3 years down the road, ultimately, what do you want your business to look like? You're probably not going to be a solopreneur 3 years from now. If you're actively doing the business, you're going to scale your business, whether that's hiring additional VAs or virtual assistants, an EA or an executive assistant, a seller specialist, a buyer specialist. The seller specialist will be boots on the ground as you are doing everything that you'd normally be doing. It's just more hands off for you, or you're duplicating your efforts. So look out 3 years from now and say, okay, what do I want my team to look like? And then from that, if you look at, say, the first year in this projection, a time frame, you say, well, let's say I want 6 deals. Okay. And then at the end of the year, or part of the way through the year, you increase your team. Maybe you add an additional VA. And after you've had a few deals, maybe you decide it's time to hire an EA to take some of that administrative stuff off your plate, to free up more of your time to talk to sellers, work with sellers. So you're going to have more time in your business, which means the number of deals should increase. So in year 2, you're going to look at an increase in deals. So now you've gone from 6 to maybe 12, just hypothetically. And then the 3rd year, you say, well, I want to hire a seller specialist, duplicate my efforts. So now you've gone from 12 deals a year to 24 deals a year, hypothetically. So in planning that, the first year, you're going to have just payday 1s and payday 2s, because your payday 3s won't cash out until around 24 months later, at the least. Maybe 18, but we figured 24 months later. So payday 1 and payday 2 for the first year, 6 deals. You project that out to what that will be. Your payday 1s for 6 deals. Let's say they're 50,000 a piece. That's K right there the first year. And then you figure your payday 2s, those are staggered because you may have a deal in February. You may have another deal in March and another deal in June, maybe 2 in July. You kind of project those out and stagger them. So you add that up for the first year. The second,
when average about 300, right? Because the payday 2s can vary, but go ahead.
Right. So, we can use average payday. You look across the community and it's like about 300, 260 to 300 ballpark. And you can change that a little bit if you want. If you know your averages, that makes it much easier to project it. But so you've got the year one and year two, that's pretty much what it looks like in projecting your deals. And then year three, now your payday threes come into play. So let's say February of this year, you have your first payday one. Well, February 2 years from now, you got a payday three. So now you add that in on top of the deals that you're getting, the 24 deals, and you can see how your business will scale exponentially.
Yep. And you're gonna have certain numbers of properties on the books, as we say. And so now your business become predictable, and you can say, and you can increase, like, I know Chris, they started selling off certain homes because the rent to own buyers were not performing well. So they just said, screw it, we're just going to sell these off. Right. So there's a lot of flexibility. And once you start getting a bunch of houses in the books, right, where you're not in the first year, you're scrapping to get that, the 3, the 4 deals, and you're scrapping to get those tenant buyers and get those payday ones. Year 3, and once you have multiple houses in the books, or like Chris was saying on the whiteboard, then now your business becomes predictable, right? And then you can say, now you have this machine. Let's describe, because you have an EA, you don't have a seller specialist yet, I don't think, right? No, you have an EA. Describe their responsibilities and what that looks like.
So I have 2 VAs and 1 EA, Megan. She's fantastic. And she's taken a lot of the administrative stuff. She's been working on contracts. I've trained her pretty much in dealing with all the buyer stuff. Granted, I'll be the one to do the buyers meetings and the buyers signings, but she goes through all those calls that you get, inquiries. She deals with all of those. She knows the properties and what, all of the processes are. So she does that, takes that all up my plate. And she'll handle social media for me, handles my email, which I struggled giving that up and putting that in somebody else's hands. And I went from probably 12,000 unread emails down to like 6. And it was like, and she knows when an email comes in and needs my attention, she lets me know that. She flags it appropriately. So, and the EA, I hired her after I had 4 deals under my belt. And, you're paying a salary, but look at the return that you get. You've freed up so much more of your time.
Yeah. I mean, when you talk about the tenant buyers and having those phone calls answered, right? Because about 80% are just looking to rent. They don't see the description where it says rent to own. They just say rent. And so they're calling. And so you're weeding those people out. And for that to get off your plate, so you can focus on what's real important, which is the money producing activities, right? That's huge, right? That's a huge thing to get lifted off your plate.
She also communicates with the sellers to set up the property viewings for potential buyers. So,
oh yeah, that's good.
It definitely takes a lot off my plate and allows me to focus on working with sellers.
Yeah. And then you talked about seller specialists and duplicating what you would do. So seller specialists, my understanding is that they're going to make the initial calls, they're going to make the follow-up calls, they're going to make the appointments, they're going to go on the appointments. And then all you're basically doing after the appointment is writing up the offer and sending out the contracts. Is that accurate?
That's what my understanding is. I'll get to that point. But,
okay.
When you have a team like that, if you want to go on vacation for 30 days or whatever, the business will run and you just have your meetings with the team periodically. So you're not as in the business as you normally would be, but then your efforts are duplicated once you come back. So
yeah, that's the point where you want to get is you want to be able to leave, right? Where you have the opportunity, right? This is what I don't want to say that everyone's dream, but the dream is to, like you said, leave. Let's say I want to go to Costa Rica for 30 days and the business is still in the US, still, producing leads. You have a seller specialist going on appointments. You have an EA setting those appointments up. You have an EA answering emails, phone calls, and you're sitting there drinking a Mai Tai on the beach of Costa Rica, right?
The other thing is when I had done it and projected mine out, it went well into the $1 million for annual revenue, which just blew my mind.
Yeah, because we have a lot of people have a scarcity mindset, right? They're, you and I were both government employees at some point, right? And we're capped.
Yeah.
And it's almost embedded in us as far as having a scarcity mindset that you're only going to make X amount per year and that's it, right? There's no opportunity for us to dream big and say, I want to, if I had unlimited amount of money, I could do this, right? When we were working, we didn't have that mindset. We weren't thinking unlimited amount of money. What you're describing, and because of the way we structure our deals, where we don't use banks, we don't use our own money, right? The money's infinite and it's plentiful if we do it right. And you got to do it right, right? There's a path, right? Because if you try to cut corners and you try to do things on your own, and Rick, you would agree with me, you're not doing this alone. You seek out advice from others.
Right. I remember Chris told me, Rick, you need to hire an EA. And I said, well, that's somebody's salary. I'm going to be responsible for it. Don't worry about it. You need a different mindset on that and look at it from a different perspective. And it's been invaluable, and if you look at the 2008, 2009 timeframe, if you're flipping properties or you're a developer and you got multi-million-dollar revenue or projected revenue, and all of a sudden the floor falls out from underneath you. We don't have that risk.
We don't. And you're alluding to, we don't use our own money, right? Like I said, if you do a lease purchase, possibly a subject to, we're not putting our own money in. We put $10 down. Now, if they want a down payment, then we just take that from the tenant buyer and we give it to the seller, right? So it's not our money and it's not our loan. Subject to, the loan is in the seller's name. Owner financing, the seller is the bank. So, we're not taking out loans from banks. And that's why we're not going to get in trouble. If we do hypothetically have an 08 or 09 crash, we're protected, right? And that's why our money is infinite.
And the other thing is you're dealing with people that are renting to own. You're not out there flipping a house and trying to find a buyer, traditional sale on a buyer.
Right. So we have a bigger pool. We have people that have an invested interest in buying this home. They're going to take care of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So good stuff. Thursday, Rick, we have the virtual event. This is taking place we used to have a live event, right, in March called the Summit. We're not having that anymore. We used to go to Rhode Island and have a live event. So they stopped doing that and they started doing these. I think it's bi-monthly now, or it's every trimester. They have these in the Trenches Bootcamp. We've talked about Trenches Bootcamp many times and the value that it brings. We're going to do that in the Trenches Bootcamp virtual event this Thursday, 2:00 Pacific time?
Eastern time.
Okay. So I'm talking Eastern time, 2 to 5, right? 3 hours long. First hour is usually we're going to call sellers for associates that have leads. And then we're going to get into the second hour, which is typically we go over deal structure. And then the third hour is we will maybe pick on somebody and do a business plan, or what we were just talking about now, right?
Strategy. Yep.
You call? Yep. So those of you that are listening, if you want, that's going to be in the show notes. The In the Trenches Bootcamp this Thursday, the 20th, from 2 to 5 Eastern time. Anything you want to add about the virtual event?
No, the virtual event is just a condensed version of our full In the Trenches Bootcamp, which, by the way, the next one is March 5th through 7th. And these are do not miss events, because a lot of times, almost every time, people walk away when they bring leads, they walk away with deals out of the boot camp.
Yep. Yeah, that's super important. I mean, I did. I think you did when And it wasn't a boot camp; it was a strategy session, or it was just a one-time thing. But when I came back from mine, I had 3 offers sent out, and I think I got a taken from that on one of them. So definitely super important that if you are interested in joining the community, that you come and check it out first, because when we say in the trenches, we are there. We're in there doing it for you. It's not like these other programs where you just buy and they say, okay, good luck, go for it. Right. Yes, ours is a coaching program. There is an investment involved. However, we lock arms. Rick, I don't know if you want to talk about some of the things that we do for associates as far as locking arms.
Yeah. And like Rusty mentioned, we get on the phone, you bring leads to us, and we'll make the phone calls to the seller, negotiate as necessary, structure the deal with you, and then strategize, as Rusty also said, on the third day. And we basically break it down. We find out, okay, if you would like this as a goal for the year, how many deals do you need to make? Then we take, okay, we know based on predictable key performance indicators, how many how many offers you'll need to do to get those number of deals, and then how many appointments you need to go on, how many leads you need to have those appointments, and then all the way to how many dials you need to make to do those appointments.
Yeah, super important. And it is predictable, but it's also based on your effort, right? We talk about attitude and effort, right? We're looking for the serious and dedicated. We will pour gas. If you're serious and you're dedicated, definitely going to pour gas on you and do everything we can to get you a deal. Now, does that mean we're going to hold hands throughout your whole business career? No. At some point, you're going to develop some wings and you're going to fly away and start doing it on your own. But we are there definitely in the beginning parts to make sure that you guys are doing all the right things in order to get that deal. Great stuff, Rick. I will see you tomorrow on office hours. Yes?
Nope.
No, you won't. But I will
Nope.
see you virtual event.
Yes. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. So good luck tomorrow. I'm not gonna say it on here, but good luck tomorrow and
Thanks.
enjoy it. And then I'll see you on Thursday.
All right. Sounds good, Rusty.
All right. Take care, everybody.
Take care, everyone.